Kiss baby.
That's how you name it here.
Thank you. Trevor, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Somehow I didn't make it all the way to you or something, I don't know. I have trouble keeping track of my own self.
It's about the same distance from starting to finish.
There you go.
Well, you can just sign each other. I know we just like that.
I didn't have an opinion, I just said there's no way I'm taking my grandkids and slush. And Cascades is worse. Oh, you've got like 2 feet of snow, foot of slush, foot of water on top of that.
Call our meeting to order. As you know, there's been a lot of dialogue out there about seeing a little bit more collaboration with all of us, and so this is certainly a first step towards furthering that goal. And so we're delighted to welcome you here today. We do have a quorum of ACHD commissioners, and so with that, I'd like to welcome Boise Mayor McLean. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Eagle Mayor Pierce, thank you for being here. Garden City Mayor Evans, happy to have you.
Thank you.
Star Mayor Chadwick, thank you for joining us. Meridian Mayor Simison, we're pleased to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. And Mayor Steer from CUNA, welcome to all of you.
Appreciate it.
And so with that, we will turn it over to Director Long.
Well, good morning, everybody, and again, on behalf of the commission and all of the members here at the Ada County Highway District, thank you for being here, and congratulations to 4 of you for your great wins. We look enthusiastically forward to tremendous partnerships with you and your staffs in working all the different issues that we have with the same constituents across the board. What I'd like to do is give you a very brief overview of what I call ACHD 101. Then I'm going to turn it over to the very smart people over there, and they're going to walk you through some interesting, hopefully it's interesting things for you all to see what we do, where your integrated 5-year work plan is going, and some of the innovations that we've taken to make your staff's jobs and hopefully yours a lot easier going into 2020. So that being said, next slide, please. Of course, this is our leadership. Those are their districts and such, and I know that you know them all. Next slide. A little bit about who we are. On May 25, 1971, the voters had a very small ballot. It said yes or no as to whether or not we would establish the Ada County Highway District by a vote of the legislature. I want to personally thank the city of Boise because the city of Boise unanimously voted to have an Ada County Highway District. And so Mayor McLean, thank you. We really appreciate that.
That was back before I was born.
Yeah. Well, it was not before I was, so thank
So you have a whole bunch of other people to thank.
But as you can see, we are governed by a 4 and to Idaho across the board. And the taxpayers own a lot of things that we here at the Ada County Highway District lead and manage for them across the board. Next slide, please. We are pretty big when it comes to infrastructure. You could actually drive from here to New York and back just on the infrastructure here in Ada County. It's kind of daunting when you look at it, and we look at the cost and the cost of maintaining and improving this tremendous system that we have. But those are the numbers. Next slide, please. Our priorities are very simple. These drive every decision that we recommend to the commission. Our first priority are people. People are profit centers, not cost centers here at the Ada County Highway District. We look to innovate. We look to bring in the latest and great ideas. And we are always focused on safe operations because what we do is inherently dangerous. And it's, we're just very, very happy that our safety record is where it's at. Next slide. Okay, what we do. Well, in a nutshell, this is what your commission does when it's all said and done. We do maintain, we do improve, we do build, and I want to be, we're not a road department. We're much bigger than a road department on operations. The commissioners have a very tough row to hoe. They must wear a regional hat. when they're dealing with all of your staffs, all of your constituents and stuff, but they have to have a regional hat based on the direction that the legislature has given them. At the end of the day, they're honest brokers, and sometimes that's a good place to be in, and sometimes that's an unpopular place to be in, but they do a very, very good job of getting all of the issues and coming out with a strategy and a decision that best supports all of Ada County moving forward. Next slide. We're also your international ambassadors. For whatever reason, the State Department consistently calls on the Ada County Highway District to host different delegations from across the world to understand how this system here at Ada County works and how we are able to work with so many different elected officials without violence and such. Staffs are a little different, but I mean, when it comes to the elected officials, no. And it's really neat to see the different countries that have requested by the State Department to come here to Ada County to understand how we do business. Next slide. We also give back as an organization. Our team is very focused on charity support, giving back to the public. Just this last year, we did that for the Children's Home Society. Next slide. Prior year, we did that for the Guard and Reserve Family Support Fund. Next slide. Prior to that, we supported Camp Rainbow Gold. And the list goes on and on and on. And what we do here is our team members select the charity that they'd like to support on a volunteer basis. And then within the three boundaries of it's got to be about families, it's got to be about children, it's got to be about the military and such. And we rotate through those. Next slide. And speaking of military, yeah, we also do support the Idaho Patriot Thunder. And I'd like to thank all of the mayors here whose police departments offer up their time on a Sunday to escort about 1,000 riders from High Desert Harley-Davidson and Meridian to Mountain Home, and they do a tremendous job. So mayors, thank you, because all of you play in that. All your police officers do. Next slide. Okay, how do we do it? Build on a strategic plan. I'm sure you do the same thing in your cities. It goes through a capital improvement plan, to the integrated five-year plan, which we will delve into here shortly, and into the budget. But bottom line here, it's all bounded by an intense public engagement process that we have consistently across the board. And sometimes we find that the steps we're taking aren't what the public wants. And sometimes when the staff makes a recommendation, the commission having great tentacles into the different neighborhoods and such will say, no, this is a better process going forward. And we adopt and we improvise and we overcome. Next slide. Okay, state of the district. Next. Mayors, this is the one tenet that the commissioners have directed the staff to accomplish on a consistent basis. Those 7 underneath it are the key guidelines. So trust me, there's about 1,000 more that we look at and such. But those are the 7 tenets that support that one objective that they have given us to ensure we're doing the best for all of Ada County. I'm proud to let you know that we meet those on a monthly basis across the board. Next slide. I'm also proud to let you know, once again, you do have the best roads all in the Northwest and some of the best roads across the nation, according to independent analysis that we do every 2 years, 2-3 years on our operations. There's just some charting of where other cities that are comparable to maybe Ada County and such look at, but again, we have a tremendous team and they're very dedicated to ensuring that you have the best infrastructure possible here in the Northwest. Next slide. The commission is also very good at balancing the dollars that the taxpayers send to the Ada County Highway District. I like to look at things over time to show where trends go. And as you can see, the red is where the commission has directed we expend dollars, and the blue is where we get dollars from. And as you can see, over time, Ada County Highway District Commission does a tremendous job of assuring a regional approach to operations here in Ada County that benefits all cities and all users across the board. Next slide. I thought it'd be interesting, or just quickly show you what our capital allocation methodology is. This is what the commission has directed us when we look at all those projects, when we look at the budget that we have, how do we come back to the commission after discussing these with your staffs and of course all of you, say this is the plan for X number of years based on those priorities that the commission has directed. Next slide. That being all said, there are some challenges ahead for all of us here in Ada County, and I call it the three-tiered crossroads. Next, the first one is the population crossroads. I'm sure you might have some discussion about that later on in your meetings here. Next, that's where we are sort of today. That's where we're going. Next slide. And that's what Compass tells us that we should be prepared for in the very near future. And if you look at that number, that's 5 years away. And such. So no strange focus. Growth continues to come this way. Next slide. I thought this would be interesting for you all. This is a little summary that what we have seen regarding permits, because we see them all for all of your cities and such. And you can see the continued growth and the amount of roofs that are on the docket or have been put on the docket. It is amazing. And it's a challenge to the County Highway District to provide the infrastructure and processes to get people from point A to point B. Next slide. This one, systems. Next, please. Age. It's a heck of a challenge. The construction of your system is based on different thought processes, different construction methodologies, different timetables, and it becomes a challenge. And how do we maintain all of those different types of road structure, types of infrastructure operations that we all have inherited? Next slide. Growth. You saw it earlier, 5,121 miles as of yesterday in the Ada County Highway District. Projection is another 370 to 400 miles in the very near future. And I will tell you this, the system is nowhere near being built out. You'll learn about this here just in a couple minutes. Next slide. And of course, the funding crossroads. Next slide. Bottom line, right up front, this is what your commission, the commission, by law is allocated to place dollars against. That's it, by state legislature requirements. Next slide. Our major sources are here. Next slide. And this is funding opportunities that the commission has attempted to work through. As you know, we did try to do an increase in registration fees. The voters said no. There's a lot of no's there. The commission has other tools they can look at, but at the end of the day, the customer, the taxpayers, are not very supportive of those type of issues for the commission. How do we know? We've asked. Next slide. Okay, based on some questions that some of the new mayors have had and such, I'd like to go very quickly through what our priorities here are for winter operations. Next, this is what the taxpayers own. I want to go back to that 5,121 miles of road structure. This is what we own to make this work. Next, we have a tremendous, again, Mr. Mayor, I'll send you that one if that's, that'd be great. Okay, I'll send you that picture. But these are our two salt shed containers, one at Adams, one at Cloverdale. We have a lot of capability and capacity. Next. You've probably seen blue salt come out. We decided to do this a couple years ago. It gives our operators an ability to not put more than they need to put on the infrastructure for environmental considerations, because we can see it as we move forward. It's just a dye, but since we're here, it's Boise State, we picked blue. Next slide. These are our priorities, mayors. I know that your staffs at times will get calls, and we're more than happy to send you this. I think your staffs have those, but at the end of the day, this is what we do in that order. I will be very candid with you. We generally will not get to priority number 3, because the snow options that we have here, Mother Nature generally takes care of that issue. And going back to the amount of equipment we have, the number of people, miles of roads, we believe, as the commission has directed, the number 1 priority is key. And but we do move number 2 up in that, the school bus one up with that number 1 as we go through there, because that gives us an opportunity to get into the neighborhoods and hopefully open a road or 2 as we move forward. Next slide. And then very important for everybody, we publish this If you need help, those are the numbers. Those are on our websites, they're on our maintenance websites across the board, and we do respond very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, last night, we got a call from Boise PD around 5 o'clock in the evening saying, can you help us on Bogus Basin Road? We did. We sent a plow up there, we started, and then our plow got hit by a car. Nobody got hurt. We will be there. It's just as easy as that. Next slide. So with that, Mayor's, again, congratulations. We look forward to all of your leadership, partnership with the Ada County Highway District. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Justin. We'll talk a little bit more about what we do.
Well, good morning, Madam President, members of the commission, mayors of Ada County. I'll be back here presenting to you. Everything will be up on the screen. I'll do my best to project. As always, if there's any questions, concerns, comments throughout the presentation, feel free to stop me at any time and ask any question that you would like to. I do want to introduce myself, Justin Lucas. I'm the Planning and Programming Manager here at ACHD. Also with me today, Ryan Head will be presenting after me, and Christy Inselman. These are members of my team that have been doing a lot of hard work on ACHD's Integrated 5-Year Work Plan, which is our primary programming document that outlines our construction projects and tools that we're using to build projects within Ada County and its 6 cities. So I'll start with just a brief introduction, and the director covered a little bit of this, of how we do what we do, how we choose the projects that we're working on, and why we do the things in the specific order that we do them. Really, everything starts at the top with the city and county comprehensive plans. Those plans are critical to this region. They establish the land use vision. All of the entitlement decisions that are made are based on the comprehensive plans in our county and in your cities. ACHD doesn't act on any application for land use for a subdivision or anything without it being transmitted by a city. So we don't independently operate any type of growth or entitlement process. All of that is in full partnership with the cities. Below that, the county comprehensive plans and the city comprehensive plans we work very closely with Compass. Compass is our regional transportation agency. They help us with demographics, with transportation demand projections, and we closely coordinate with them every 4 years as they update the Regional Transportation Plan Communities in Motion. It says 2040 2.0. Right now, we're working on 2050. It's exciting to see how much our county has grown and all of the challenges that come with that. So what we've done here at ACHD is we've tried to link what we do when it comes to transportation directly to your county, the comprehensive plans and the Compass Regional Transportation Plan. One of the direct links is through our strategic plan, where it talks very carefully about ACHD's responsibilities related to asset management and resource allocation. We have other documents that we use and update on a regular cycle. Our capital improvements plan, which is primarily the roadway and intersection expansion plan for the Ada County Highway District. And then we'll talk in detail today about our integrated 5-year work plan and the process associated with that. On the bottom are all of our foundational planning documents that feed into all of this. Bike master plan. So to provide a little bit of context and foundation for our conversation today, this is ACHD's master street map. About 10 years ago, we worked very carefully with each city to develop a map that says, here's what the roads are going to be in the future. Here's how wide they're going to be. Here's the characteristics that they're going to have. Bike facilities, pedestrian facilities. And with this process, the ACHD Commission established a very clear commitment to context-sensitive design, that each road is going to fit the context of the land use that we develop in. And ACHD has been working very hard to do that over the last many years. We use a livable street design guide and our complete streets policy to guide us in those decisions. Wanted to show our capital improvement plan. This is a critical document for the Highway District. It's directly tied to our impact fee program. All of our impact fee collections are based on the calculations and analysis that goes into our capital improvement plan. And ACHD can only charge impact fees based on the commission decision for the roadway expansion. So it's the new travel lanes that are associated with roadway expansion. And this plan clearly outlines what we're doing as it relates to that. And it's very specific to congestion relief and ultimately building an urban network in our county. There's a lot of roads that have been built and a whole lot of roads that still need to be built in our county. Our bike master plan. This was a commission-directed document that really shifted the focus at ACHD from kind of the standard bike facilities on arterial roadways, a lot of the bike lanes and other things that we've done in the past, to a different approach focused on a low-stress network and really providing facilities that are appropriate to the adjacent roadway list to ride on, and that's where the commission is focusing their efforts. We also, over the last about 10 years, have been very focused on neighborhood planning. So we've been out in the communities at the neighborhood level. In cities as large as Boise or Meridian, we've broken the city down into different pieces and parts based on their neighborhood structure. And we've tried to reach out directly to the citizens and ask them, where are you trying to go? What are the projects that are missing? What are the key gaps? And these neighborhood plans have really provided us with a robust project list that helps us know what are the key projects that we should be thinking about and working on. And then the question is, well, with all these projects, all these needs, all the things that we have to do, how do you make a decision on an annual basis to decide what to do? ACHD has some relatively complex prioritization methodologies with a lot of data associated with them, but really it comes down to this. ACHD's focus is safety, access, network gaps, congestion relief, and partner agency support. Those 5 elements really make up the basis of ACHD's decision-making on an annual basis and how we make those decisions. Each of these metrics we carefully monitor, and you're going to see how we look at some of these things today in subsequent presentations. That being said, I wanted to introduce our integrated 5-year work plan very briefly. This is an annual document. We are very proud of the work we do in this area. We try as best we can to be as transparent as possible. This document contains every project, how much it costs, where it's located, of all types, maintenance, roadway expansion, community programs, bicycle projects. Everything is located in this document, and it's very detailed. And we work very closely with you and your staffs on an annual basis. You receive a letter from us. We ask you what your priorities are, and it's a really interactive process that we go through on an annual basis to try and create this plan. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ryan Head, and he will discuss our integrated 5-year work plan annual report.
Thank you, Madam President, Commission, Mayors. It really is a pleasure today to be able to present this to you. This is the first of its kind integrated 5-year work plan annual report. And I would like to say that it really opens up a new level of transparency for what ACHD is envisioning to do and our progress along that path. We are also starting with this as part of our, as the kickoff to our integrated 5-year work plan, starting even earlier. At this point, your staffs have all received a request from us to prepare requests to ACHD, priority list for ACHD, and Christy will talk more about that here in a moment. But you'll have this report available to you, as well as the tools that Christy will show you here in a few moments, in order to help inform that conversation that's had. The emphasis of the report is on the build out of a network for all users. This is not just build out of a road network, it's build out of a network for however people choose to get around, and is very focused on the public. The language within it is talking about how ACHD serves individual users based on their desires. You each have a copy of this annual report on the desk in front of you, but we also have an integrated or an interactive version that's already posted actually on our website today under our quick links where you can find all this data. A lot of the things that Christy will show you will also are brought into that interactive version in combination with the PDF and the paper version you have. The first half is focused on that network build out. The second half is focused on the neighborhoods, on looking at the scale where individuals are and where they're most likely to interact. Using that baseline that the commission established and starting to look at neighborhood level bike and pedestrian planning, we're starting to do some analysis at that level for all modes. And that's what the second half is there focused on. It is an honest look, and that's that transparency that we're talking about. It really is there with the facts. This is how far we are in our progress in building out a network, or how much people can access a certain destination given a certain mode. And so for that reason, we say it's not really a cover-to-cover report. It's more available there for you to dive into a particular topic of interest to you. So speaking on that first half of the plan, which is focused on transportation choice and how ACHD serves an individual however they choose to travel. The first aspect of that is building out a network for all users. You'll note there in the top left, those major roads, this is the arterial network around the county. For those who believe that the network is built out, that's not exactly the case. We're only about 30% of the planned lane miles on that arterial network built at this time. We have about 6% more, but we have a long ways to go. And that's using the master street map Justin just showed you, that shows what the planned network is. Now that's different based on the different neighborhood levels, and that's why we have that neighborhood scale where you can break that down and see how that deviates. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. On the bottom, it talks about the bike network, and the commission adopted those levels, and there on the left, or on the right, you can see how far we are in building out what's planned for that network, but emphasizing that low stress network. And these are our facilities that are primarily off the arterials, your neighborhood routes, and the links that are needed to connect them. These are going to have additional signage that brands them as these. There's going to be added emphasis in wayfinding and how improved crossings at the arterials, and how we can get people around. Since 2018, we've been able to complete 6% of those that are branded and marked out there. You'll see those along Shamrock and Leadville. There's a number of other roads that we've been able to mark as completed. And then we have within our 5-year plan 19% more of that network. So within the first 7-8 years of that plan being adopted, we'll be able to have 25% of that network built out. Speaking to sidewalks, we had to establish a goal here, and what is the goal and how far along we are in making that progress. ACHD's commitment through its Complete Streets policy and livable streets design guide is that our arterials and collectors would have sidewalk on both sides of the road. For local roads, we looked at our neighborhood plans, because as we've gone out to certain neighborhoods, sometimes we get a response that's not always expected, and that's neighborhoods saying to us, we don't want sidewalk on this street. And so what we're looking at on the locals is the assumption that you would have a sidewalk on at least one side of that street with the where it's been identified in a neighborhood plan. Now that doesn't change our policies related to development and our goal that we would have it on both sides, but really that's how would be ideal anyway. Now looking at, it's great to have a network, but the question is really, where does it get you? And so we've worked with some advisory committees we have a pedestrian advisory group, we have a bike advisory committee, we have an Americans with Disability Act advisory committee, as well as a capital investment advisory committee that helps us identify some things, and we've been working on identifying some metrics that really tell this story a little bit better. For instance, where there are bus stops, the question is how does ACHD support that system and getting people to those bus stops? Of the sidewalk network within a half mile of existing bus stops, 87% of those sidewalks are complete. But that tells us a story of where we are in providing that and allowing people that access to walk to that bus stop where those exist. Now, on the right of the question, and it may be interesting to try and compare this 87% and 35%, this number over here are countywide. So where you don't have a system, that number is going to be smaller, and this is really heavily dependent on the land use component. And this is where we kind of cross paths in terms of where those facilities are available and the sidewalk facilities that people could walk on to get to them. This shows the progress we are to date and how people are able to access. Those statistics are even more telling when you look at those at the neighborhood scale, and begin to identify, where are those places where maybe more investment in this area is helpful, both from the land use and availability perspective of those key destinations, as well as the sidewalks. We also have worked with our advisory committee to talk heavily about the signals and the accessibility of those, and we're continuing to make progress on the priorities that they've identified there. Now, getting into that neighborhood scale, Justin talked about that, the number of plans we've completed, and this is the timeline of when we've completed those. Currently this year, we're working on a plan in Garden City and in the North Meridian area. Next year, we'll be coming back to CUNA. We did a downtown corridor plan, but that didn't cover a lot of area. And so we're gonna come back and look at the whole area of CUNA, as well as South Meridian at the same time, which will generally wrap up our cycle of our 10-year cycle of neighborhood looks. And then our goal is to start again. So we'll come back to Boise Central Bench where we started, and then add in Barber Valley, that last little piece at the same time. But really the goal of this is to continually be revisiting with the neighborhood, reporting on what we're doing and the progress that we've made, being honest in that and and getting their perspective on that, and then reviewing the priorities and reaffirming the planned network for both bikes and pedestrians. But this also gives us that scale by which we can report out. So looking at how that begins to play out, here on the left, if we look at that build out of the arterial network, as you look at it in the individual scales, there's a great diversity of the percentage build out there. For instance, in downtown Boise, in the East End, in Garden City, at least the arterial network that ACHD controls there, the network's 100% built out as far as the arterials go. When you get down to CUNA and South Meridian and Star, the numbers are a lot smaller. They're down below 10% of that network. But that story is even more telling when you look at where that is compared to the congestion levels that are in those communities. And as we look where we see areas where there's more congestion are in Southwest Boise, North Meridian, the West Bench of Boise, and these are places where those investments will continue to be balanced. This does affect our decision-making though in terms of our funding conversation, because the impact fees ACHD collects can be used to address growth-related development, and where a segment has become an existing deficiency, when we adopt our capital improvements plan, then they're not impact fee eligible. And so those become real conversations the commission has to grapple with in terms of how to invest in certain areas. And then as we talk about the access to key destinations, again, that depends heavily on the land uses. But it's interesting when you look at this at the neighborhood scale. An example here, again, in downtown Boise, the numbers are 100%. 100% of the population in those areas can access a school, a bus stop, a grocery store, a park within a 1-mile walk. Those numbers are different in the different communities throughout and neighborhoods throughout the county. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Christy so she can talk through some of the tools that we've given your staff and you all to work on to help with your requests and priorities.
Good morning. So annually, ACHD requests a list of project priorities for inclusion in the 5-year work plan from all of our partner agencies. This includes all 6 cities, the county, and the 3 school districts. The priority lists provided assist ACHD in understanding the importance of an improvement in a specific area and at a higher level. We'd like to introduce you to a new tool that we've developed to assist our partner agencies in creating and submitting their prioritization lists. These include a lot of the information in our foundational documents that both Ryan and Justin have already spoken about. So we've created a completely interactive tool that provides that information in one location. I like to call it a one-stop shop. And we have met with some staff at our partner agencies and gone over these, and I'd like to walk through all of the information that they're being provided. So the first tab we have here is the adopted 2020-2024 integrated 5-year work plan. This is available currently on our website, but we also wanted to put it in one location for your staff, so not going to different areas to find this. We also have on the left-hand side, we do provide links to the full document. So again, it's in one area, they're not having to go everywhere to find it. And when we say it's interactive, it truly is interactive, where you can scroll in and out to look at this document. If there's a particular project, you can click on it. It gives you the name, the description, who the project manager is, design, right-of-way, and construction year. And then same as our website, if you click on this link, it provides you a one-page summary of that project with all of the cost associated and broken down. The second tab, we basically went through and mapped all of the partner agency requests for 2019. We feel it's important for not only to see what each agency, what an agency has requested, but also what the other agencies have requested, because some of that overlaps. So we have the school districts that overlap with the cities, which may overlap with Ada County. And when multiple agencies request a specific project, it does increase in our prioritization matrix. So for example, the Lake Hazel Road Extension, this project was requested by Ada County. It was their number 6 rank. And if you tab over, if there's a little arrow on the side, if you tab over, it also shows that this was also a priority for the city of Boise, and it was their number 13 ranking in 2019. Then we took that information, we gave another tab that shows the status of those requests. So from the 2019 request, you can see the orange are the programs, projects that are listed in our current 5-year work plan. And again, you can click on any one of these projects and it will give you additional information. It'll give you project name, what's its status, it's programmed, it's a design year and construction year. The remainder of these tabs, and this shows you all of the arterial roadways within Ada County and their current status. So the green is showing all of the arterial roadways in Ada County that are considered complete. Orange are the ones we have programmed in the 5-year and the future unfunded. And we kept this coloring consistent on the tab so that it's clear which ones are complete, programmed, and unfunded. And again, on the left-hand side, we want to give you all the information in one place. So we have links to our complete streets policy, our livable design, and our master street map. So you can go there and get the full document as well. And again, if you click on it, what I like about this layer is it shows you the road name. It gives you the typology of that road, which ties directly to our livable streets design. You can go and see what the treatment is for that type of road. And it shows you the existing number of lanes and the planned number of lanes. So again, we've got it in one spot. You can go click on it, zoom into your area, fully interactive. We love that word. The next tab, again, we went through and we mapped all of the projects that are currently in a neighborhood plan. You can see the shaded out areas are the ones that Ryan spoke about that will be forthcoming in the future. North Meridian, Garden City will be next year, and South Meridian and CUNA the year following. But again, you can zoom into any of these areas, click on a project, and it tells you the project name, the neighborhood plan that it's associated with. It gives you the crossing or what type of project it is, and what the priority is. Some of the earlier plans that we had didn't have the rankings. So some of those you may see in NA, but the vast majority, it'll show the ranking that was identified in the neighborhood plan. And again, on the side, we have a quick link to every one of the adopted neighborhood plans that we have to date. So if they want to see the full document. And again, we took that information and we provided a status update. Where are we at with our neighborhood plans? And this is a larger layer, so it always takes a minute for it to come up. But you can go through and you can see with those neighborhood plans, what have we completed to date? As Ryan spoke about, 222 of those projects in the neighborhood plans have been completed. So you can click and see where we're at on a project. Overland Road, Southwest, Boise was a low priority and it's in the future. But again, we've kept that coloring consistent so you can clearly see what we've done and what still needs to be done in the areas. Okay. The planned pedestrian network is probably the biggest layer, so that one always takes a few extra minutes, but we also felt this was important to provide. This shows what's complete when it comes to our sidewalks in Ada County. Where are we at? And where do we have gaps, or where do we have areas that still need that infrastructure? So the green is what's been completed. A lot of that are local roadways that were completed through subdivisions. And then we have our arterial network shown on there. But again, it shows what's complete, what's programmed, what's concept, and what's in the future. Every single one of these layers is fully interactive. You can click on them and see additional information. The planned bike network, this is a map representation of our roadways to bikeways plan. So this just shows what was adopted, the level of roadway facility that's planned for that area. And again, that's a large layer, so it takes a minute. Here we go. And again, on the side, we have a link directly to that roadways to bikeways plan. And I tend to forget sometimes what the levels of the network is. And so we also have a quick reference guide on the side that goes into the definitions for each of the levels of facility. What information goes into that level and the type of treatment that we would be looking at for that. So you can scroll down and see all of that. And again, interactive. You can click on it and see additional information. The last tab that we have for you here, we actually took and did a status update on the actual low stress bike network. So it shows what's been completed, the green, what's been programmed, and what we still have to do for that low stress network. So again, you can click on a project, it'll show you the project name, it gives you the extents of the project and where we're currently at with that. Now this tool that we've provided, we're meeting with all of the agency staff to date. If I can go back. Current site. So we sent agency kickoff letters on December 20th of last year, and staff has been meeting regularly with our partner agencies. So to date, we've met with basically everyone except for one. We have one more next week, and that will complete all of our meetings, where we're going through providing the update form for 2020, which has last year's prioritization list. We're also providing all agencies that have a neighborhood plan that's been adopted. We're providing all of the projects that are still yet to be completed in an Excel format, so they can add that to their list if they so choose. And we're giving them a link to that interactive map that I just showed you. So the prioritization lists will be due from each of our partner agencies by March 20th. This is an important date because we get that information in, we're able to evaluate it and get our scoping teams out in the spring. And thank you for listening to our presentation. Let us know if you have any questions. Yes, Commissioner Goldberg.
I may be taking a bad swing at a good pitch here, but on the interactive maps, which are far deeper and far more interesting to me anyway than the ones in the past, this thing's evolving really well. Is there any way we can invite them in for any training on using that tool if they feel it would be valuable?
Commissioner Goldthorpe, we've met with all of the staff and
On
gone
the
through
tools.
on the tool.
All right.
And
well,
provided
like I
that to
said,
them. Yes, we're doing that. And we also, there are some of our partner agencies that have requested those GIS layers, and we're happy to provide those as well.
Cool.
Yes, Mayor Chadwick.
I'm gonna go back to the master street map. I'm just curious, is it did I hear it correctly? It was 2010
But we do go through a biannual, so every 2 years we update that map in coordination with the cities. So if there's changes to your comprehensive plans or there's development actions that modify that map, we take those into account on a 2-year cycle.
Okay, and so you'll reach out to us when that's timing that needs to happen?
Yes, we
Because
will.
I was just gonna say, with the craziness STAR is going through right now and about to go through, the dynamics have changed tremendously, and we need to make some changes probably out there in STAR.
Yeah, that's very fair. And as your communities develop, updates to your comprehensive plans, and you go through that process, we're glad to work with you on that and make the necessary changes to our master street map.
All right, thank you.
Well, staff has provided a very comprehensive, a lot of information for everybody to digest in their efforts to increase the level of transparency to all of you. So now's your time to go ahead and ask any questions or comments about concerns you have going forward. While they're here to answer on your questions. Mayor Steer?
So I'd just like to, kind of with what you're saying, I just want you to know ACHD staff is very responsive. We've had questions all the time on things, and they get back and they help us get through what we need to do. So that's awesome. And I really do appreciate the interactive map. That's going to make life a lot easier, especially even looking in the updates on the 5-year plan and work plan and that type of thing. So I appreciate that, but ACHD is very responsive. They do a great job of making sure the questions get answered and you always have access. So I've been real pleased with the service that we get from them.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comments. Mayor McLean?
Thanks, Madam President. I've got a question probably for staff. Related to the ADA accessibility build out. Just wondering if you have a year by which you plan to have all the ADA updates completed. And then also your thinking and how, as a commissioner's staff, you balance ADA needs and neighborhood response to sidewalks.
Madam President, Madam Mayor, it's really a good question. The reason I say that is because the ADA need in our county is huge. It's hundreds of millions of dollars that we've identified in deficiencies within the system. Last year, the commission went through a process of self-reflection. We call it a transition plan. It's a required federal document where we documented all of the needs, went through a clear planning process to identify our goals as it comes to when it comes to remedying those deficiencies. It's currently on the current schedule. It could take the highway district up to 30 years to go through that process, because not only as we're fixing needs, we have other deficiencies that are occurring due to, let's say, a tree root that upheaves a sidewalk, or a curb ramp that is damaged or through weather or something like that. So it's not a static process. It's really an evolving and changing process. So one of the things we've done through our integrated 5-year work plan is we want to transparently show the progress that we're making, show the need, and then look to the commission to decide on how much money they're going to allocate specifically to that process. Now, we fix stuff through basically every program we have. Our capital program, every time we widen a road, touch an intersection, do any type of maintenance adjacent to, let's say, a deficient curb ramp, we're going to fix it. The stuff that's hard for us to get to is those items that we don't have a project, we don't have a maintenance activity, there's nothing else except that maybe deficient curb ramp. And right now, the commission allocates approximately $1.6 to $1.7 million a year, specifically on our Safe Sidewalk program, which fixes broken and damaged sidewalks primarily within neighborhoods. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but there's a huge need, and it really touches almost every aspect of the highway district's operations.
Any other questions? Here?
So one of the questions I have is, obviously some of the cities are changing in the way that they're not necessarily bedroom communities, especially Eagle, being a lot more commercial, capturing a lot more of our own traffic. And I know I'm not sure if you guys use a percentage way that you decide how much revenue and how much you spend, if it's just on a need basis. How does that, and has it been adjusted over the last 10 years as things have kind of morphed and changed?
Madam President, Mr. Mayor, the director in his opening presentation showed the revenue allocation over the last, I think it was 10 years, maybe even more than that. And that really is, those decisions about what projects will be built, how the revenue is allocated, are made in two primary ways. Through the integrated 5-year work plan, which we just showed you, and through the ACHD annual budget. And all of those decisions related to allocation come from the commission. They have set targets in certain categories, and ACHD staff presents a budget and an integrated 5-year work plan that meets those targets. If there's specific areas within your city that you feel are deficient, those are the perfect areas to highlight on your prioritization list through the integrated 5-year work plan.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I could add on that. We work very closely with all of your staff. It's incredibly important that when your staffs, through you, send us your inputs, your thoughts on where those projects, what the priorities of those projects should be. That is a key issue. The reason I say that, we do get inputs from cities that say, here are the projects we like, but there's no prioritization, there's no comment, and it's just here. That becomes very difficult for the commission then to, after our staff has gone through this in collaboration with your staffs, to come forward and say, on the integrated 5-year work plan, this is what we believe from a regional perspective is good. You have an outstanding opportunity to, again, when you put your thumbprint on that, I would ask that if those key parts are there, or those key projects that you believe are important, you need to make sure your staff and you translate that verbatim to our staff, and then we will bring it to the commission and say, for Eagle, this is their top 3, top 4, top whatever it is. For Boise, these are the top. And then we will rack and stack them and present them to the commission, and they will make a determination in a public forum.
Over the year, the reason I'm asking is over the years, I've heard that, even though Eagle brings in some revenue, not all of it gets spent, and it's because obviously the Eagle residents spend time going on the roads in Meridian and the roads in Boise and stuff like that. And I'm wondering if any of that was calculated through actual traffic counts and actual, specific knowledge, or if it's just because we assume, because one of the things I know about Eagle is a lot of our residents don't even work in the valley, they work out of state. A lot of them work from home, that's why they live out in some of the rural areas and things like that. And so I was just wondering if there was any data that was specific to traffic counts on how we decide how much money we spend where. And I mean, obviously, I understand about the 5-year work plan and all that, so that was just one of my questions, is how is that determined, just on what is needed by the different cities? Obviously, if a city is building more and having more density, they have more needs than another city on their artilleries, but, so.
Yeah, it's all taken into account. I could have the staff walk you through it at your convenience, and such, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to how the city leadership prioritizes what they believe is most important for their city, and then that comes to the commission for their final determinations.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Goldthorpe?
It's not like I didn't have anything better to do, but I didn't have anything better to do last week, so I spent about 6 hours kind of putting our claims about our PCI index and the status of our roads and stuff to the test. I visited with a lot of folks in a whole bunch of different cities around the United States because I was as interested in figuring out how we stacked up nationally as just within the geography that you saw on that chart. And I found out one thing, that I've been wanting to make fun of Salt Lake City a lot the last 5 years because of their really crummy roads. They have heard about that, and a fellow that I spoke with said, we've even approached our city council with the fact that Boise's laughing, it's Goldthorpe, but Boise was laughing at us and the bad condition of our roads. And they've gotten a lot more money budgeted for their roads the last year and the next 2 years, which they need badly. But I've never found a single city that comes even close to Reno in terms of their quality of the asphalt in their roads. And they all say the same thing. We understand that it costs far less to maintain really good roads than it does to maintain crap. And so they're having to spend, for instance, Salt Lake, for instance, 3 or 4 times as much per square feet of their roads to bring them up to a good PCI index as it would have otherwise if they hadn't have just been micro sealing for 25 years the same road. And anyway, when we talk about that and our maintenance of our assets being our number one priority, sometimes this bothers me to death, that the cost of maintaining these roads is going up far faster than the revenue that we have with which to maintain them. In fact, the inflation rate and stuff on the cost of construction is, as many of you know already, has far outpaced the general inflation rate in the economy. And since we are primarily a maintenance organization, not only by how we were created, but by the decision of the commission, there is less money in terms of real money, not just inflation index dollars, but real money available for everything else we do. And so we've been trying, and that one slide you saw really early in Director Wong's presentation, we've been trying very hard to establish different revenue streams that can increase the ability that we have to do other types of projects without increasing taxes, I might add, and have so far had a pretty dismal reaction from the legislature in the places that we need to get support. So anytime you have an opportunity to give us a hand with stories about how much more you think transportation needs, whether it's for roads or transit or anything else, please feel free to let your mouth go.
President May and Mr. Oldthorpe, I believe wholeheartedly in the ACHD model. I really do. I believe one of the great things about it is the amount of money that goes to administration compared to what if you had 5 different or 6 different road networks. I mean, the taxpayer dollars would be wasted in stuff that it doesn't need to be. So I believe in it, and I just want to, make sure that I look out for Eagle, of course, right, and what Eagle's doing, but I also understand that there's other entities involved, and so looking forward to it, and good ways that we can explain it to our residents about why it's a good model and why it works. And the interactive stuff is going to be incredible, and I plan on using that at council meetings and stuff to really make sure our residents understand the process and what's happening, because sometimes I do believe ACHD gets a bad rap. So
well, be that as it may, one of the maps you saw was the aging of our system, and that determines where a lot of maintenance dollars have to go. And as you saw, the oldest parts of our system are in downtown Boise, down right in the core of downtown Meridian, a little bit in Cuna, but the rest of your towns are pretty new. And without making the word neglect sound bad, but there hasn't been a lot of attention paid to the parts of the core in Boise because it's been constantly under construction. And if we'd fixed it 5 years ago, we'd be redoing it again a lot quicker than normal. So as the construction starts to slow down a little bit, all those great tall buildings that needed to exist 30 years ago were just holes in the ground that are now being filled or have been filled, then we're going to have to spend more of our maintenance money down there.
The health of the system that exists, while keeping our eye on the growth that's coming in and be ready for that. I know Mayor Chadwick, you've expressed some of the same concerns that Mayor Pierce has had about the money and where's it going and how's it allocated. So hope some of your questions have been answered today.
No, it's been great. I think since we've had those conversations, things have gone, I think, really well between STAR and ACHD and our interactions on trying to get things done. And we understand, I mean, we're a small piece of the pie out there in the farthest reaches of the county, right? And so.
Growing quickly.
But we're growing quickly, right? And then we run into the other dynamic of being a dual county city and dealing with the road stuff on the other side as well. So it's gonna be a challenge.
It's important that you understand and have those tools so that you can then explain to your
And it
citizens.
is an explanation thing.
Right.
I mean, all the new people that come into town don't understand,
Exactly.
right? And having this interactive map, when is it gonna be available?
It's up there.
It's up.
Oh, it is up
It's
now?
up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Being able to show that to these folks and stuff will help educate people on how things truly work around here and where their monies are going. So,
And it's very user friendly.
Yeah.
So that I'm sure that'll be appreciated. Any other questions or Commissioner Arnold?
On when those are appropriate and how they're put in place?
I'm going to have Gary Inselman, our Deputy Director of Development Technical Services, answer that question, because if I say something, it'll probably be wrong. So thank you, Gary.
That's the same.
Madam President, Mayors, Commissioner Arnold, extraordinary impact fees are allowed under the statute when there is a finding made that a particular development or area is going to have an extraordinary impact on the system. It would need to be, how to make those findings is legally challenging, and depending on the situation and the impact you're trying to address. The easiest example we have of an extraordinary impact fee is in the West Foothills when Hidden Springs was started. We had dirt and gravel roads out there for the most part, and we established an extraordinary impact fee overlay assessment district to bring those roadways up to a minimum local or collector standard for the 24 feet of pavement. So that, and that zone is still active. We still have a couple $1 million worth of improvements to be made out there on Cartwright Road and Siemens Gulch and Dry Creek Road. To establish a new area somewhere else, there'd have to be some very specific impacts that could be easily identified in those findings made, and very specific projects that would need to be programmed to mitigate those impacts. So I hope that somewhat answers your question.
Well, I think it does. It may raise some questions with other people, but.
Thank you, Gary. Any other questions? Commissioner Hanson?
Just to sort of leave us with some thoughts, I appreciate that there's 4 new mayors here. We're entering a new decade. I lived through the previous property tax revolt, and I think we're poised to face another one. And we sort of are in a key point now. In the next decade, I think people are going to be increasingly putting pressure on us. What is the return on all this massive investment, public investment? What's the return? Or have you created infrastructure or operated in a way that kicked the can down the road? And their solution will be much more of a blunt instrument. We're heavily reliant on property taxes. The infrastructure that we create through ours is largely driven by our capital improvements plan. You saw that with the map, the planned arterial network. That does 2 things. It telegraphs to the development community, this is where you can plan on new roads, and your impact fees will be used to spend that. It also ties up property taxes, because we have to put property taxes both on the front end and then of course in the maintenance. What's the return on that investment? We don't measure those. We don't measure this agency as a special purpose district. It does not measure economic return. It does not measure health and safety. Those are the things you do as general purpose governments. I'm watching Canyon County sort of struggling with, how do we make this much more integrated? How do we have a capital improvements plan for transportation that actually enhances and strengthens our land use so that we have a better return on investment? We leverage private and public investment. How do we make that integrated? It's a much more heavy, difficult lift in this county because we have separate entities. We have a capital improvements plan for the highway district. We have capital improvements plans for the cities. And they measure different things, and they aren't necessarily going in the same direction, but what they are doing is spending tax dollars to build infrastructure that taxpayers will be obligated to pay for under a current funding system. So we can either address this now and start dealing surgically, even though we might be uncomfortable because, this means some of our assumptions have to be challenged, or we can just kick it down the road and let future decision makers. I'm hoping that we can do the former, that we can actually make some really tough decisions are we really getting a return? And what are we doing to measure that? I really appreciated Mayor Pierce's question about priorities. It's important that you do prioritize because we don't measure those things. Our priorities are largely driven by the level of service of automobiles at the peak hour. And that's what determines deficiencies. And then what's left, we use a variety of other tools to try and say, okay, this is how we can fit these in. But the capital improvements plan level it at the major capital expenditures is largely driven by cars. So the cities have to use those tools and tell us how to use them. I'm not sure if that's the most efficient way. It's probably a more effective way of fully integrating our capital improvements plan. And I would suggest we should do this now under, I think it's it's late in the game because we're feeling the pressure. I bet you felt some pressure from voters saying we want these decisions made. And so I would encourage you to have these hard discussions. I think there's a variety of things that could be done, but those good discussions have to take place.
Absolutely. And I like to look at this as the first of many discussions and meetings that we'll have an opportunity to work together. I think the more we talk and the more open communication that we have, then a better chance to move the needle towards some of the things that have been discussed today. So we're delighted everybody could take time out of their schedules, and we congratulate all the new mayors. And if there are no further questions, Director Wong, do you have some final thoughts that you'd like to share with the group? Going once?
Just to add one thing because it's an issue that's come up a number of times and we're kind of not too sure. We get issues in front of us often before they come to your P&Z. It's my position, I'll let the other commissioners speak, that really you as the general purpose government deciding where growth is and what kind of growth it is, you have the power to annex, to do conditional use permits, to rezone, all these tools, and yet it's coming to us first. And we get the message that you want it to come to us first, even though we don't have those tools. We can't say, and you in fact can impose conditions related to transportation and access of vehicles. So it's extremely frustrating, especially when residents come in. What's the first public forum they come to is an agency that can't give them the relief that they're asking for. So I would suggest, I think it's a more effective way of doing it since we have this unique situation in Ada County, that you address those on the front end with the P&Z and the city council, that you can impose conditions, you can create requirements. You have broad authority under the Land Use Planning Act. The Local Land Use Planning Act doesn't apply to us, to impose those and then ask the ACHD, okay, we would like these to make it work, and then we follow through, because it's a disconnect. We've had several occasions where a major development comes before us. We have to tell these poor folks crammed into this room, sorry, we can't address 90% of what you're asking for. It goes to P&Z, they address them, and they do a major change, or sometimes they actually deny the permit, and then these poor folks are like, well, why did we have to do all this in front of ACHD first? My suggestion is, let's figure out a way to make this work for our voters so that they go to the first forum that can fully address a lot of their concerns, and then if there are things that we need to deal with, we can deal with them. There's nothing in statute that says they has to come to the highway district first. And sometimes, this is just my opinion, sometimes I think some really smart developers play us off against each other. And they might say, well, ACHD's already decided that, you don't have to, or the city's already decided that, you don't have to. So I just suggest that it be dealt with by the general purpose government first.
Thank you, Commissioner Henson. Mayor Steer.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Henson, so this is a bad answer to that, but that's the way that things have been done in the past. And now that I'm aware of the situation and the problem that it creates, generally when planning and zoning is functional, I think we've just gotten used to certain size developments where it's an extension of something that's already been happening, so it really wasn't a big deal. But now with some of these that are now outside the realm of where we've had growth and where things are going, it's obvious to me that we need, it needs to be addressed within our process.
Thank
So
you.
it's understood that there was an issue.
Thank you. Mayor McLean?
Sure, I was just. Oh, okay.
Thank
I was
you.
just gonna say, first off, thanks for having us today.
Our
Really
pleasure.
appreciate the opportunity. I think this is a great chance for all of us as we're growing the way we are, but recognizing that at some points things will slow down, and that's not always great. But I hope that we can catch up in our planning and commitment to figuring out some of these things together, and then not use an inevitable slowdown as a reason to stop either, because that's really a great and even better time to do our planning. I need to get caught up to speed on that Ada County effort and conversation around growth. I just went to one in the fall, but I believe that, with all of us coming together to have these conversations and Ada County attempting to convene us all to talk about growth, it's a great chance actually to have these conversations about process. Who does what first? Often I think the cities want to just kind of push it off and give you guys the bad stuff first, and then it comes to us. But as we think about what our areas of impact are, who's going to annex where, the infrastructure that we need to move our citizens from home to work, and everything everywhere in between, this opportunity to come together as a county with the highway district and all the cities within it, I think creates that space for us to have some of these conversations and maybe come out with something different, because we're in a really different space than we were when the rules of engagement and the order of procedure all came to be.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Mayor Evans, did you have something you wanted to say? Contribute?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the discussion, certainly. And as Commissioner Hanson was talking, I think, those who don't know, I'm the mayor of Garden City, but I make my living as a developer. So, in Canyon County. I think one of the challenges that an applicant has is ensuring on the front end of a project in Ada County that their plans meet the policy manual of the highway district. So I don't know. I haven't done a project in Ada County in years. I used to come in a pre-app format, just sit down and say, this is what I want to do. Let's talk about the connection to the system and whether that meets district standards. And then I would go back and finish up the planning process and do the entitlement through the city. There's going to be an interest from the development community to not spend the money it takes to start the entitlement process and not know whether it's going to meet a separate special purpose government's criteria to get passed, because they can get the blessing from the city and come in and you've got a separately elected plat signing authority special purpose government that can create some real changes in a project potentially at great expense to the developer. So you got kind of a chicken and the egg thing. And the pre-app protocol is what I used to use. I do it in Canyon County, even in cities, before I start throwing lots of engineering dollars at it. So